Okay, good morning. Welcome to Meet the Masters.
Morning.
Today is November 5th, 2021. I am joined today by Master Todd Oyen. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Thanks for joining me. I guess
Oh, my pleasure.
it's morning for you and not morning for me anymore, but
I got a little bit of time. Still morning. Yep.
I'm kind of disappointed you took the tie off. There it is.
There it is. Yep. I changed.
So what was the you have lots of ties, or at least it seems that you appear you have a lot of ties.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I have a closet full.
Do you wear them daily?
I used to. So that's kind of how it got started. Working at the college, teaching at the college when I first started 20 something years ago, we were expected to dress up and wear ties. And so I started with just what I called fun ties. It might be fish or an octopus or something. And whenever I went somewhere, that was kind of the thing I looked for in the gift shop, was a tie. And so I just started with those. And we started going more casual at the college, and I got away from them, except for some Christmas ties. And so I was wearing those. And then my mother-in-law knew I liked them, and she went to a yard sale. And a guy had a box of Christmas ties that she got for like $5. And so I have like 50 or 60 of them. So in another week or so, I'll start wearing Christmas ties every day to try to wear them all before Christmas. And that kind of started.
Sirius XM has already started their Christmas music. So I think you're good to go. You're clear now.
Yeah, but it kind of hurts before Thanksgiving to do much Christmas. It is to me, at least. I don't want to rush it.
I agree. I was joking with the kids. Actually, my kids were messing with Alexa, and Alexa was singing Christmas music on Halloween. I was like, all right, let's slow down a little bit. Awesome. So how are things going with you right now with teaching at the college and then also with Tong Sudao? Are you busy?
Yes, for many reasons. My full-time job is teaching paramedics, and I work part-time as a paramedic. And paramedics have never made much, so I'm used to working like 2 or 3 jobs. So I have teaching at the college full-time. I teach at a university part-time. I work on an ambulance part-time, and then I teach Tong Sudao. And because I just didn't feel like I had enough, I'm working on a doctorate. So busy is a understatement. Yeah.
You sound like my wife. She's just about to finish up her MBA. She just finished the thesis for her 5th on. Hey, we have a couple of people saying hello. It's funny. Master Klaus just chimed in. We were just talking about you, Master Klaus. We're talking about your shrimp Alfredo recipe.
Yeah, I'll have to get that now and try that one.
Yeah. Master Wheeler from Region 5, the newly appointed regional director, says hello.
Hello, sirs.
And Natalie Walker from Great Britain says hello.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hello, man.
That's right. We are international. Master Mobrook as well says hello.
He has been next to me on every test. And in one of these days, I either want him to test ahead of me or behind me a year. So my kicks don't look so bad.
Yeah, about that. Him and I, I had the opportunity to train with him yesterday, and it's always fun and challenging to work alongside him.
Oh, but he has so much energy and he's so positive. It's always he's brought me up many times when I just didn't know if I had another kick in me, and he always encouraged me and got me through it. So great guy. Awesome.
Yeah, if you can't get motivated working around him, then something's horribly wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Wow, all sorts of people. Brian Burkett says hello. Master Albero says hello.
Okay.
Gaynor Russell from the UK says hello. All right.
Oh, hello.
Awesome. Cool. So let's get started. We'll go in the Wayback Machine, and we'll test your memory. How did you get started in the martial arts?
I was and still am, a terribly shy, quiet person, which makes it really kind of ironic that I teach. But but I think I made it through middle school without speaking. I was just a real shy. I had a good group of friends that we played t-ball together, baseball, soccer, and Boy Scouts. So there was a core of probably 9 or 10 of us that were just real solid friends. But outside of that, I just was real shy and quiet. So, the usual, picked on a little bit for being quiet and being bullied and all that. So got into high school, and that didn't change much. Ran cross country and track, and that may have helped some. But my freshman year in high school, my parents were trying to find something to help build my confidence. So they said, "Hey, why don't you try this karate school that just opened down the street?" And I went down the street. It was a mile or so away. So I went down there, and it was a Taekwondo school, and I went in and did my free introductory lesson, and I really enjoyed it. And rest is history. I was able to go 2 days a week as a white belt, but then when I tested for my orange belt, I could go 6 days a week, and I did. So I was in classes for 6 days a week. I would go to school. We'd do our cross country practice, and school was about 3 miles away. We only had a car in the family, which was pretty typical back then. So I biked everywhere. So I'd bike home, and then I would run down to the karate school because I did get apparently enough running in cross country, and do a couple hours of karate, and then I'd run home and do homework. And that was my life for a while until I started working. And but I just loved it, and I was there.
Now,
And
where
it
was
was great.
where were you? Where did you grow up? Were you in Alabama still, or?
No, I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
And being up north, you wouldn't think of it as being such a pedestrian city, but there are bike paths everywhere. So biking around or walking or running to things was just kind of normal. I even cross country skied to school a few times. So.
Wow.
Which was not abnormal up there.
You sounded like you were pretty active. Were you big outdoors person?
Through Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
My parents
Okay.
did a lot of camping, but I love being outdoors. I love hiking. So
Is that something you still do?
I did until I started going back to school. Now that I'm working on that doctorate, I've just run out of time. I would love to go this weekend. It's supposed to be gorgeous weather, but I got a 12-page paper due Sunday. So we'll see. If I can get it written tonight or Saturday, I might go out Sunday, but otherwise I'll be typing at a computer the whole time.
Well, I appreciate you taking an hour out of your busy schedule to have a chat with us.
Well, this was a surprise that you asked me, but I'm greatly honored. You've had some amazing people on these, and I don't count myself among that group, but I'm honored to be maybe a side part of it, a small part of it.
Oh no, you'd be surprised at the humility of all of the people that I talk to, where they basically say the same thing as you. It's like, why would you want to talk to me? It's like, well, I like Tong Soo. Turns out you do as well. So I'm sure we'll find something to chat about.
Well, when you messaged me, it's like coming off of the U.S. Nationals, I really thought you wanted my wife because she had the exciting job at Nationals carrying the belt. So I thought you wanted Lacinda instead of me, but you said no, you wanted me.
I'll chat with her at some point. It's interesting. I don't know if we've ever had a conversation, but we've passed. I saw you at U.S. Nationals, and you do a lot of behind the scenes at the Masters clinics, and I honestly haven't had the chance to talk to too many Masters from your region, and so you seem like a good start. So you got to start somewhere, right? So there you go. So as far as the Taekwondo classes, do you remember like taking classes as a kid? How were classes back then? And, as far as compared to what we do today, or maybe what you teach today?
We didn't have the one steps, and we had forms and sparring on Wednesday nights. So from like 4 to 6 was forms work, and then 6 o'clock until we all got tired was sparring. So then the other classes were a lot of kicking drills, warm up, stretching, conditioning, a little self-defense here and there. So somewhat different. I guess the biggest thing is the forms and the sparring all being on one night was different than kind of how we do it today. But being Taekwondo, Tang Soo Do, very similar. So all the same kicks and blocks and some of the same combinations.
Awesome. So You were training 6 days a week. How many hours a day were you training? 4 hours?
I generally would do two. We had two
Okay.
classes a night. The only difference was that the Wednesday night sparring. I didn't at the time appreciate, I guess, what our Taekwondo instructor was doing. He in Madison was a pretty big city, a couple 100,000, state capital. It's the University of Wisconsin, so there was a pretty large group of people. But he would open up the doors, and anybody that wanted to come in and spar, as long as we were within certain safe guidelines, we could. So we'd have kung fu people come in, or aikido people come in, or a judo school would come down one night. And Muay Thai, which was the ones I didn't like to fight, they would show up occasionally. So it was, I guess, in essence, a bit of a precursor to MMA, because we never knew who was going to be in there that night and who we were going to spar. And we had enough room for probably 4 rings in the gym, and we would of course have to take turns, 2-minute rounds. But we would start at 6 o'clock, and there was many times it'd be 9, 10, 11 o'clock when we'd finally say, yeah, let's go home.
Wow.
So
That
when I was younger, I much enjoyed that. Now that I've gotten a little bit older, I don't want those broken bones and bumps and bruises and black eyes and all that. So it was good at the time.
any major injuries in the martial arts as far as like throughout the years? Like, you have any broken bones or anything?
Well, I'm a little bit different. I have a condition called Charcot-Marie Tooth, which is a peripheral neuropathy, progressive peripheral neuropathy. So I don't really feel my feet and my legs much, and I'm losing it in my hands. So I have broken many things and just never knew it.
Gotcha.
In fact, my Odon test, I had broken my right foot, and I had spent about 3 months in a boot. And the Wednesday before master's clinic, my orthopedic said, you can stop wearing the boot now. And I said, great, because I got a martial arts clinic this weekend, and I might be testing Saturday. And he said, no. I said, no, I'm going. He said, no, I don't authorize that. And I said, well, I'm going. He said, well, can you do it in the boot? And I said, I don't think so. He said, well, what can you wear? So we settled on hiking boots, but I took in the little medical form to him, and I said, this is what I'm going to be doing. And he went, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. He didn't want me to do any of it. So that was probably the one that impacted me the most as far as the actual training. I've had a couple of cracked ribs and knocked out more than a few times, but back in the day, that was just part of it. We know a little better now. But.
Sure. Yeah, interesting. Now I know why you were saying that you're looking around at Muhammad. It's like, come on, man, just bring it down an inch or two for me. Help me out here.
Yeah, my hips are not what they used to be. And if I can get it waist high, I'm doing pretty good nowadays.
That's all right.
But martial arts has been a huge blessing, because it is probably about the best physical therapy I could be doing for myself for this condition.
Sure.
Because I stretch and I strengthen and I'm moving. My doc doesn't like it so much because I can kick things and hurt myself and not know it. She likes me walking. She doesn't like me hiking because the ground's so uneven. She's worried I'm going to trip and fall. So I just don't tell her I do that a lot.
Don't worry,
but the martial arts has just been an amazing. Yeah, no one that won't get out. But martial arts has just been an amazing exercise for me in many ways.
Awesome. A couple people, more people saying hi. Brian Ormanson says good afternoon from Florida.
Hello,
Got
sir.
Yoshi from Region 5.
Hello, sir.
So now that you have another master in the family, is she Master Oyen as well, or what does she go by? Because she chimed in. She said Region 6 representing. She's
she is all-knowing, all-seeing, supreme ruler of the house, Master Oyen, and I'm just Todd. No, she started white belt. She was the first one I brought from white belt to black belt, first one all the way up to Sadan. And to see her get master was just a huge honor. And I'm so tickled for her, so happy for her. Probably one of the few times I've cried in a martial arts presentation is seeing her get that belt and then giving her that hug afterwards. That was so happy for her, and I think very well deserved. She does so much behind the scene work, running things and doing things, and it's nice to see it recognized.
That's awesome. Yeah,
When I got my
she said we're working on what I'm called.
Yep.
We're the same.
When I got my master belt, Bill Johnson, who doesn't train with us anymore, but Master Johnson, I was talking with Lacinda, and he came up and he said, "Yep, that belt's going to look real good as you take the trash out tonight. Just remember that." So, so the master's rank may work in class, but I'm still taking the trash out at home and all that. So,
absolutely, yeah. It's I can imagine the pride you would feel for the first person coming to master, but obviously it's compounded because it's also your wife, and that's pretty amazing. It felt the same way. My wife just got fifth dan as well, and it's the same thing. You love to get, for them to get the recognition where they don't.
Yes.
Sometimes, she's kind of like tries to be behind the scenes as well, but it's nice for them to, get that recognition that they deserve.
Yep. Extremely proud of her, that hard work.
You started in Taekwondo.
Mm-hmm.
And here you are, a 5th degree master in Tung Sudo. So what was the pathway to starting with the association?
So I stayed in Taekwondo throughout high school until I'd moved away. And I guess it was right after I graduated high school was when I tested for a black belt in Taekwondo, and went through the test. And our school did tests individually. So it was about a 3.5 hour physical test, and I sparred every other black belt in school. And it was a tough test. And at the end of it, they went off to confer whether I passed or not. And they came back and they presented me this belt that was a black belt, and it had this stupid red stripe through it. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And he said, "Well, that's your probationary black belt." So what we call a master belt, he used as a probationary black belt. So after my 6 months probation, I got out the seam ripper and I ripped that stupid red stripe off my belt so I could be a real black belt. And then 20 years later, I got another belt with a red stripe on it, and that one's not coming off ever. I wish I had known then what the red stripe through the belt meant to other associations. I wouldn't have been so quick to tear that off. But that was our probationary black belt. Kind of interesting. Yeah. I moved down to Atlanta for a couple of years and worked as a paramedic down there. And on my off days, I volunteered for a program called Young Olympians, where we would go into inner city areas of Atlanta and teach what they consider to be some of the things that would be beneficial for your at-risk youth. And I thought that was a pretty cool program. So I would go into these projects, and of course I kind of thought I was like, tough, and here I am, black belt, going into these projects. And 90s Atlanta was kind of a rough time. So I kind of thought I was like the man, tough and all that. And then one day I'm walking out of my class and I see this in my brain, young girl walking in, doing the same thing I'm doing, but she's teaching dance. And I realized that I'm not as tough as she was, for going into some of these inner city schools and inner city projects and places that on the ambulance I'd go into for shootings and stabbings all the time. And then here she is just coming in to teach dance classes to them. So had to get humbled a little bit there. When I moved to Alabama, I looked at the Taekwondo schools, but I was at a little bit later stage of my life, and I was not quite so interested in the competition anymore. And the Taekwondo in the area was all about competition. In fact, you didn't advance the belt until you competed so many times and all that. And I was getting beyond that. I fought full contact when I was in Wisconsin. And as I said, I didn't like all the broken bones and bumps and bruises anymore. So that was not an interest to me. And then I ran into a guy named Mike Hall, who was teaching a class at UNA, outdoor leadership. And I took it because I like the outdoors. I like being outside. So I thought that sounded cool. And he taught me to try and Tung Sudo. So I went with him to his master, which was Master Greg Engel. And I started there. And Tung Sudo I just loved. Um, moved around a little bit in Alabama, and wasn't a huge move, but it small enough that Master Strong's at the time, Grandmaster Strong's school was closer. So he asked to transfer to his school, and I started with him in like 95, 96, and just loved Tung Sadell and stuck with it ever since.
Awesome. Did you so you said you were at UNA when you joined the class with Master Engel?
Yes, I was still working as a paramedic. I knew I wanted to probably teach EMS one day, because it's working on an ambulance just gets rough, those 24-hour shifts and having to lift people and all that. So most of us have some sort of an idea of something kind of as a, not necessarily an exit plan, but a plan B if we hurt our back or whatever. So I thought education would be what I wanted to do. So I was working towards getting my bachelor's so I could get a master's in education so I could teach EMS.
What led you to have an interest in the paramedic side? Like, how did you get into volunteering for that?
A girl. I was dating, well, no, I've always had an interest in I guess, helping. I was looking, middle school, high school, you take those tests about what could you do for your life or what would be a good career fit. And I know there's a name for the test, and I can't think of it now. But I always scored high in either medical or doing something outdoors like forestry. So I thought medicine, be a doctor, that pays a lot of money. So I was going that route. And so I was dating her, and her father was a Secret Service agent, which was a little intimidating to be dating his daughter. I don't know whatever possessed me to do that, but he knew the mayor of the city of Middleton, which was next to where I lived, and contacted them about me doing a ride along on an ambulance. So at 16 years old, I did a couple of ride-alongs on the ambulance service, and it was a volunteer ambulance service, and I absolutely loved it. So I joined it, and for about 2 years, I was an ambulance driver, and then I got my EMT license. So then I was an EMT person, and I just have absolutely loved it. It's a job where every day you go in, you make a difference, and it's obvious that you make a difference. There's no doubt at the end of your shift that people were better off than when you started. And I don't know if I can ever put into words just how totally awesome it is to like do CPR, defibrillate them, they wake up and know you have saved a life. And I know Lacinda is listening to this, so maybe you can mute this part for her. Can you kick her off? Because I don't know if there's anything better than knowing that there are people alive because of things that I have done. And that's just incredibly humbling and an amazing, rewarding profession. So that's how I got into it and decided to stay with it.
Well, I thank you for doing that. Things like that, and being the husband of a ER doctor. I know that at sometimes it's stressful, and it's one of those things you walk in and you're not quite sure what you're going to deal with that day. And I'm sure that's part of the kind of drive of it. But yeah, it takes a certain type of person to be able to handle that every day. So thank you for volunteering and training and all those, all that stuff. That's awesome.
We all have our place to play in all of society. So this just happens to be where God put me, and I love it, and I'm thankful to do it, but everybody has their role in all of it to make things go round.
Right. So at what point you moved to Master Strong Studio? Did Lacinda start training once you opened your own studio, or was she training with you then?
No. So I trained at Grandmaster Strong for many, many years. And we had several like clubs or sister schools in the area, and one of them was at the YMCA. And the instructor there took a new job at work and had to give up teaching. So Grandmaster asked if I would take over that. And I said, sure, great. So I've been teaching there for maybe a year. Lucinda might be able to answer that better. and then actually through a CPR class, her organization that she works for the Cerebral Palsy Center. She does physical therapy for special needs children. And they needed CPR, and they called the college, and I went over and trained the CPR class. So I met her there. And during the CPR class, I was talking about karate and martial arts, and her son, Sheldon, wanted to take that. And then her daughter, Anna, wanted to take gymnastics. And I said, well, the Y does both. So you got to look at that. So they joined the Y, and she was watching, and she said after about 6 or 7 weeks, she thought, hey, I could do that. So she joined the classes, and there's kind of a you don't ever want to, well, I don't want to say don't ever, but dating a student is sometimes a little frowned upon. So it was a long time. In fact, I think she was testing for black belt before we sort of realized that there might be more, or it was after black belt, that there might be more. And it just sort of happened from there.
Nice.
So it was their second degree test. Anyways, somewhere in there between black belt, first degree and second degree.
Oh yeah, that my wife and I met through the martial arts as well. So we went to the same studio, and then when she came back, she moved back from medical school. We were friends, and then started dating from there. So
yep.
If you keep showing up the same places all the time and you don't branch out, luckily you found a keeper.
Yes. Oh, definitely a keeper. Coming up on 14 years next week.
Awesome. So when you started that teaching at the YMCA branch, did that eventually just become your own thing, or did you end up opening your own club or studio from there?
No, Grandmaster. So I tested for Sodon, did the 2 years for Sodon, and then to be a master, you have to have your own studio. And I was more or less running it, but it was still under Grandmaster's name. And he was very generous and kind, and decided to turn it over to me so I could test for master. So after I'd gotten my Sodon, he turned it over to me, and I had to wait a year or so. So then 2 years after Sodon, I got to test for master. And so I've been running it since then. We still called it North Alabama Tungsudo, which is Grandmaster's school's name. When he became Grandmaster and had to retire his school is when we changed names. So that's when it changed to Oyen's North Alabama Tungsudo. So just added the Oyen to make it a little different, but I wanted to keep the North Alabama to honor him and all he's done for me.
Yeah, I find it interesting. Being from Region 8, I had not as much time with Grandmaster Shin as some of the guys that, like my instructor, Master Godwin, did, but they got the chance to be with him. And I'm assuming it's very similar in your position of being in Region 6 and coming up under Grandmaster Strong. You just share some stories with us as far as his example and the leadership that he has shown to Region 6 and now to the whole world as far as World Tungsudo Association goes?
Well, outside of my father, he definitely is a second father figure to me. My own father, which he's still alive, and I don't think anybody will ever be able to surpass what he has done for me in my life. But Grandmaster has been a huge influence, both professionally with his job at UNA and seeing how he interacted with other professors there and the respect that the university had for him, plus seeing the martial arts side of him. He's just an amazing individual, extremely intelligent, very well respected within his professions, but still extremely humble. There's all sorts of stories. I joke a little bit because he is still so fast that one day I might be able to hit him when we're sparring. Maybe one day. But I remember one time being in his house, and I was looking at some of the things on his walls, and he had some awards for his college and high school track, and he was a state record holder in track and field at, I think, the 400 meter. So he may not be entirely human being that fast. I'm not sure, but I understand where he got his speed from now. Just incredibly quick. One of the things that when I first started teaching at the Y that we would do just to kind of make sure things were going well, and I didn't realize what an honor and how important it was to me and how much I learned at the time. But we used to meet about once a month for an hour or so, like over lunch, and we just talk about how to run the school and how to deal with certain situations with the students. But then it would always evolve into conversations about life and goals and philosophies and just amazing conversations. And it was before cell phones and all that, because I so wish I had taken those conversations now. Just a cool time.
That's great. Yeah. That's kind of one of the reasons why I started doing these interviews where you'd have all these people and you'd take class with them and you'd hear these great stories. And it's like, man, I wish I could share this with everyone, or, share this with a certain person. And, now we get to share them. I wish, I had the opportunity to do it with Grandmaster Bodwin. Fortunately, like Master Valentin and did some of that on his own. But yeah. A couple more people are saying hi. Pam Russell says hello. Chris Randolph says good morning from Nettleton. Michael Lee says hello, Masters Tung Su. And Master Wheeler says wonderful story. Happy early anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah, he and his wife came down to see Tim Wagner. I guess it was a few months ago now.
Yes.
So we got to hang out one Friday night and train with him Saturday morning, and he taught some cool stuff for us. It was neat to be able to hang out with him, get to know him a little better. Enjoyed
Awesome.
that time.
Yeah, Master Wheeler is a great guy.
Yes.
Tim Wagner is as well. When I went to Master's Clinic, Tim and Tom Jones were in my class, and nice guys.
Yes, Master Jones and I, because he was actually teaching at the Y and assisting with martial arts classes when I started there. But he taught kickboxing and some of the aerobics classes and all that. And then he helped with the martial arts classes. And he hit the previous guy at the Y had convinced him finally to start testing. So he's been in martial arts forever, but number wise for the World Tang Soo Do Association, he's just a little bit behind me. But he has assisted and taught with us at the Y, well, since before me. And I don't think I know I couldn't do the day classes without him anymore. And even some of the night classes, when I can't be there, he fills in. And he's an awesome technician, and I've really enjoyed my time bouncing ideas off of him and talking with him, because his martial arts training started long before mine did. So he may have a lower rank in the World Tang Soo Do, but he outranks me.
Yeah, I had the opportunity. He was my partner my first year of testing, and couldn't ask for a better partner.
Yeah,
he's great. Great guy.
Yeah.
I got a question for you. Let's see. Michael Lee asks, what's the biggest challenge Master Oyen faced during this pandemic regarding to training or teaching? I guess you could take it into Tang Soo Do, or your training as far as paramedics go.
I had probably a much different experience than most people during the pandemic. So EMTs and paramedics have a very chaotic schedule at best. So either 24 on, 48 off, or 7 on, 7 off. So we would have students that would have to miss classes because of work pretty regularly. So I had developed most all of my stuff already to be online. So if a student had to miss a paramedic class, they could at least watch the videos online, do some other activities online, and kind of keep up with things. So that part, when they said you're going home, it was like, okay, it's all there. We'll do it online, and we'll meet once a week, sort of like a Zoom thing, and see if we have any questions. And we just kind of kept going. We had to come in for skills to still practice that, because you don't want a paramedic out there that's never started an IV, or you don't want to be there first. So we still had to do some of that stuff.
You can't do that on Zoom.
It's amazing what you can do. We got creative with with pool noodles and rubber bands and stick and stuff. Yeah, we'd leave little kits outside and they'd swing by and pick them up because we weren't supposed to have contact and all that. It was, we did some interesting creative things. When it became real bad in the area, the YMCA just shut down, and we shut down for 6 weeks, and only 6 weeks. So I have a lot of youth, not quite as many adults, but I heard almost universally from the parents that they just did not want yet another Zoom class because their kids were on Zoom all day long. So what I would do is I'd get up each morning that we normally would have class, and I'd go out my backyard and record some sort of a lesson and just upload it to YouTube, private link, send it out to my class. And then when they had time that day or the next day or any day, they could go do these lessons. Some of them I made public, so some people may have seen a few of them, but a lot of them was just a private link sent out to my classes, and they train that way. And then 6 weeks later, we were back at the Y. Now we were training in a mask. We weren't allowed to touch each other, that sort of thing. So that created some, I think, one steps have suffered greatly because for a long time, we just could not, especially wholesome stool. It's hard to do wholesome stool in the air.
Right.
You really need something to hold on to. And that was probably where we struggled the most, but knock on wood, we had a pretty short shutdown time, and I have not had a major outbreak. All my students have been very diligent about if they've had an exposure or think they've had an exposure, to just not come to class. And then if they need training or want training, like if they're trying to learn a one step or a form, there's been a couple of times we've done some Zoom classes, or I'll record it, video it, and send it to them so they can practice. So it's worked out pretty well. And in many ways, those 6 weeks where I couldn't go into my job and I couldn't go to the Y to teach Tung Sudo, I just taught from home. I probably worked hour-wise more than normal, but I didn't have to set an alarm in the morning.
Right.
I'd get up, go outside and train a little bit, record a video, come in, answer some emails, do a little bit of work here, go fix something at the house that I've been meaning to get done. It was actually a really relaxing time for me. So, but I was very blessed. I kept my jobs. And the Y got a PPP loan and kept paying us. So it worked out very well for us. And my studio is kind of weird. I'm actually an employee of the YMCA.
Gotcha.
And my students, if they're members of the Y, don't pay for classes. So all the classes at the Y are included in your membership. So I didn't have a physical school that I had to try to keep going.
Right.
So I was, again, very blessed, just very lucky. Things worked out well for me.
That's great to hear. And I had no idea you were a forerunner to the virtual training. You were set up and ready to go.
Yeah, my medic channel has a lot more than my Tung Sudo
Right.
channel.
Yeah, there's lots of videos.
I'm like just a few short. Yeah, just a few short of that 1,000. Once I get 1,000 subscribers, I'll start being able to make money off of all that, and then I'll take whatever few pennies I earn and give that to the scholarship fund.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll have to check that out and subscribe. I'll try to get you to 1,000. So we talked about Grandmaster Strong. Did you ever get the opportunity to spend some time with Grandmaster Shin?
Not much. He would come, of course, down for the master's clinics, and probably the biggest problem we had is he didn't always like to have his security around, and sometimes he wanted to be by himself, and trying to keep up with him. Now I was first aid, so that wasn't my job, but once in a while security would walk by and it's like, anybody seen Grandmaster? And we're like, no. So I'll be looking for him. I teach in the same, Flowers Hall. I think you were in Flowers Hall for some of the first master's clinics. So the classes I teach at UNA are in that building. And I thought I knew that building well, but not as well as Grandmaster Shin. I would see him up on a catwalk or in some part. I'm like, how do you even get there? I've never seen anybody there before. So I don't know what he did, but he would sometimes slip security and just wander around and watch us, I think is what he was wanting to do. Probably the scariest is one morning we got up to get him, and he had gotten up early, snuck out of the hotel, and he was wandering around the TVA property, which is all trails and things out in the woods. But there's a lot of woods out there, and we were all worried he was going to get lost. I think he'd gone out to the bridge and was just enjoying the views and came back. But we lost him one morning. The only time I really spent alone with him was actually at a Qigong clinic in South Carolina. We had broke for lunch at the hotel, and I went and got mine. And I normally kind of take it back to the old Boy Scout days. The Boy Scouts always had to eat after the parents, so we always lined up last. So I still line up last for meals. And so I got my food, and I went into the room where everybody was sitting down and eating, and he was sitting alone at a table, and nobody else was with him. And in a moment of bravery, went up to him and asked if I could join him, and he said, sure. So he and I sat and talked and had lunch. So I only had like that 1 hour that I can say I had alone with him to really kind of pick his brain. Otherwise, it was just here and there from time to time. Yeah. So no, I didn't get an opportunity to talk with him nearly as much as I would have liked.
Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat. I was coming up through the ranks, and I think I was I had just gotten my 3rd degree black belt when he passed away. And so, I mean, he was at all of our black belt clinics and things like that. But to say that you had an opportunity to sit down and have lunch with him, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. There was one dinner I goofed up at a master's clinic. So we used to start the master's clinics, at least some of it on Wednesdays. And I had picked up a group of people from the airport, and I brought them back to the hotel, and they were having a thank you dinner that Wednesday night for all of us volunteers and some of the senior masters that had come in earlier. It may have been when they were working on some of the finalizing the 1 steps for one of the books or things. So I got there late, which was not my fault. I had to pick up these people and get them from the airport. So I flying into the restaurant on 2 wheels, and I run into the restaurant, and they had a room reserved. So I hurry into the room. I did remember to bow, thankfully. And they said, well, have a seat. And I look around, and he's at one end of the table. And then there's all these other seniors. And then there's what I thought was the foot of the table. And that was about the only open chair that I saw. So I went and sat at that one. And all dinner, people were just giving me these evil looks. So I couldn't figure out what in the world was going on. So afterwards, Maggie Gonski grabbed me, like physically grabbed me, and said, never do that again. I'm like, what did I do? And she said, you sat at the head of the table. I'm like, well, I thought he was at the head of the table. I was at the foot. And she said, nope, never sit at that end of the table. Chair was kept open because I could have been considered the head. I didn't know. So he didn't take offense to that. He thought it was funny, but there were a few other people that were upset with me sitting there. Sorry, I didn't know. So big violation of protocol. I didn't get any little master disaster pin because I wasn't a master then. I think I was like an Edom. So that was good.
So yeah, I was gonna say, I guess because you were, I was like, hey, he's a paramedic. He'll volunteer to help out. Is that how it came about?
1995, I was a green belt, and Master Engel said, hey, we've got this karate thing going on in a couple of weeks. Could you come and give a talk on first aid? And I'm like, sure. So Saturday night, he wanted me to talk on first aid. And I was new to teaching at the college, and we didn't have all the videos. I didn't have all the cool equipment, and I would have done it much differently if I had to teach it today. But so I went and I taught CPR and first aid for a couple of hours, and to all these karate people. And that's how it was kind of introduced to me. And I had no idea what the master's clinic was, none whatsoever. So I didn't know that it was all these now 6th, 7th degree masters, and we're sitting in there on the Saturday night of master's clinic when the testing was going on. So I came in and taught and did my thing, and I at least was respectful and bowed and all that. And they gave me a plaque at the end, which I thought was kind of cool. I never got one of those before. And it wasn't until several weeks later that Master Engel says something about it being a master's clinic. I'm like, what do you mean a master's clinic? He's like, well, those are the masters of the World Tongue Sado Association. That would have been nice to have known before I went in, instead of just going to teach first aid to a karate clinic. So, which maybe that was good because I wasn't all that nervous. I'm like, well, these are just other people that do karate. I figured there were some orange belts and green belts and black belts and all that. No, that was all the masters.
Right. That's
And then after that,
probably
yes, it's
best.
like, okay, well, you can do first aid. Yeah. So yeah, I've done first aid ever since. So my first year being a candidate, they always ask you how many years have you been coming and all that. I'm like, well, this is my 17th year. And some of the people in the group are like, oh my word, what is wrong with that guy? He's failed 16 other times. And so no, I just get to help. But that's been really neat to see things from the other side also.
Yeah. What
It
did
was
they
a little
do?
bit different at the beginning.
Did they put you to work that year, or did they actually get someone else to take your spot when you were a candidate?
That was I'm going to say we had some miscommunication my first year, and I had some medical issues that were going on the first year, and I was extremely stressed, and because all candidates are their first year, and I was actually supposed to be in the hospital for a severe exposure to poison ivy. And so because I refused to miss master's clinic, my doctor had pumped me with steroids, and I was roid rage to an extreme. And I didn't know it. It wasn't until, Grandmaster at one point came and talked to me and said, there's something wrong with you, Todd. You need to chill out. And it wasn't until my wife grabbed me by the collar and smacked me around a little bit and straightened me out that I realized I was having such an issue. She also did that with Master Britt, because he was ready to like kick me out, and I was more than ready to go. So the first year that I was a candidate, I had a group of paramedic students that had volunteered to come in that weekend. They all had different shifts because I knew I couldn't staff the first aid. So I had my paramedic class there. And I think it was maybe in the evening of the first day or the morning of the second day. I don't remember which. So they were all there at 6 o'clock, and we would finish the session and I'd run back to check on things, make sure things were going okay. And then I'd go to my next session and all that. So I never really was part of that group like they have now, where they have them lined up and they all stay together and all that. I was not doing that. And I didn't think that was a problem. But apparently it was. And so Master Brett at one point grabbed me and told me that I was not allowed to do that. And if I had any students there, I needed to send them home. And it was incredibly embarrassing to me at the time. And of course, I'm still pumped up on steroids. So I probably had some negative thoughts about the whole process at that point. But I sent them home, and we just didn't do first aid. But it was interesting then, because when somebody would get hurt, they'd pull me out of my training to go take care of them. So I don't know if I was really first aid or not that year.
Wow, that's quite a story. I think from now on,
bad.
From now on, someone needs to feed you the wrong date for Master's Clinic. So you get your injuries and your stuff taken care of, and then they'll be like, "Oh, it's next week."
Yeah, there we go.
Because you had the boot, you had the poison ivy.
Yeah.
Holy cow! maybe one of these years you'll have it'll go swimmingly. Although then you'll be like, "Uh-oh, what's going on? What's wrong?"
I've had many good years now.
Yeah, I know. Tim Wagner, we just talked about you a little bit ago, sir. Tung Su.
Yes, Tung Su. Good to hear from you, sir.
Yeah. Going back, Master Wheeler said that you get the award talking about the Master Disaster, and he said we can retroactively give it to you. I don't know if you really want to accept that.
Well, I don't know if I could show it. I'm going to try to spin you around, but up on my wall, I have pins. So I collect pins.
Your hand was blocking the way, so we just saw your hand.
So up there on the wall.
Okay, there you go.
So I don't have whatever that pin is that we use for Master Disaster. So part of me is thinking I need to screw up one year just so I can get the pin to add it to my collection. But then again, I want to do that.
Yeah, right. So what kind of pins do you have? Just various.
Well, it started off as EMS.
Okay.
Because that was something that we would do. So if you were an ACLS instructor, you had a pin. It went through a hazmat class, you get a pin. Different services had patches and pins. And I did the pins instead of the patches. And then I started collecting them every time I traveled anywhere. And then I also have one of the 4 is all of my Tung Soo Do pins. So I started doing martial arts and tungsten pins. So I'm just working on the collection, just a little bit here and there.
It's cool. I like to see that you've got your certificate behind you. Is that your 5th Dan plaque or 4th?
Oh, that's my 5th. I had to make sure.
I'm sure that's a nice talking point. I assume most people who know you know that you do the martial arts, or do you ever bring that up? When you're teaching.
Well, I do. I try not to at first, but at some point it's going to slip out. And it's funny because a lot of my students have this thought of what a black belt is, and think that I'm going to like break bricks and smash a desk in half, and and I'm like, no, I'm really not. But they have a healthy respect for that, which is nice. Now, one of our stations was in an old school, and we were the only people in the school, and it was dark, and the bathroom was down the hall, and it was kind of spooky. So one of my partners one night thought it would be funny that when I went off to the bathroom to hide behind the door and jump out and startle me. And she jumped out and startled me, and I was actually texting Lacinda something, which was good because my hands were full, so I couldn't punch her in the face, but I ended up just front kicking her. She scared me, and I just threw that kick before I even thought, nailed her in the stomach. We ended up in the ER to make sure she was okay, which was a really fun incident report. But from that, there's all these stories about how I did this ninja stuff and flying through the air and all that. And I'm like, no, she just scared me and I kicked her. That's all it was. So felt bad for her, felt really bad afterwards, but like, don't do that to me.
Yeah. You take your life in your own hands if you do that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So,
it's funny now.
There's a program, Defensive Tactics for EMS, DT for EMS, that I am an advanced level instructor with. So at some point, I introduced some of that into my EMT and paramedic classes, so we can talk about how to be safe on scenes and do self-defense from an EMS point of view, because we can't exactly beat up our patients, but we do work in very dangerous environments, and occasionally we need to do what we need to do to get out. So it comes out eventually. Yes, I do talk about it. But yeah, having that 5th Dan back there, when they come in, they look at it and they're like, "You really fit to do black belt?" And I said, "Yep." And I have not had many discipline problems.
You talked about your busy schedule. What is it about the martial arts that motivates you to continue to train after all these, or train and I guess teach and help teach the next generation of martial artists after all these years?
I attribute a lot of that to Grandmaster Strong, in introducing just the concept of, our instructors gave a lot to help us, and it is now our responsibility to pass that along. So prior to starting at the Y, I had taught a little bit here and there, and he had me teaching some of his classes at the main studio, and it was just something that I enjoyed doing. But now that I've been teaching for a while, and I see that I have black belts, and trying to instill that into my black belts, that was an important lesson that he kind of drove home, about how the ones before us, the ones that went before us, did all this stuff for us, and we should turn around and do that for those still coming up behind us. But I just love it. It's fun. And even those nights when I'm dragging and I'm hurting and I'm tired, I just really want to go to bed, I always feel better after class than I do before. So, it's just great. And it's good physical therapy for me. I got to keep moving or I'm going to end up in a wheelchair. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, I agree with all of that. We talked earlier, I've been doing some substitute teaching, and even if it's busy, like just having those like 3 hours of classes to look forward to work with the little kids and see how much fun they have. And it makes it all worth it. It's fun to see how much they get out of it.
Oh, and their energy level. Even though I'm tired at the end of some of those kids' classes, you can't you can't help but being a little happy at the end of them. Just seeing their excitement and their smiles, it's great.
Absolutely. They're the hardest ones to teach, but they produce the most joy. No question.
Yeah.
We're getting close to the hour mark. We've got about 5 minutes left. Is there anything you want to talk about that we haven't touched base on, or any kind of closing remarks you have for us? The other thought we could talk about, as far as like aspects of training, if you have do you have a favorite aspect that you like to teach as far as the martial arts goes?
Oh wow! So now you're blending what I do as a paramedic with what I'm trying to do as martial arts, and this is something I've struggled with lately. And maybe struggle isn't the right word. I've spent some time thinking about. Maybe it's because I'm back in school. What exactly do I want my students to get out of Tang Soo Do training? I know Grandmaster Shin talked about physical fitness and self-defense and being a better person. So those are my three ultimate or overriding objectives. Then how am I going to test to see if they've achieved those objectives? And if I have a test, then how am I going to train them so they can be prepared for the test? It's all that backwards design that we have to do for our regular education classes. So I'm struggling a little bit just with what exactly do we do with Tang Soo Do? Do I want to focus more on self-defense? Do I want to focus more on the physical fitness and health benefits? Or do I want to focus more on how do I make people better as a human? Or is it all three? And what exactly do those things then mean? And I'm sure there's some sort of master's thesis in there somewhere. If somebody wants to develop those, you can have those ideas. But I'm trying to figure that out. I really like Hyung work, but I also like the application of Hyung, which then becomes much more of a self-defense thing. So in my brain, I think we should, as an association, we have a lot of Hyungs, but I don't know if we dive deep enough into what the Hyungs actually, what each of the moves are and what we're doing with it. And I think we should almost have another curriculum or another book on, here is Seiga Hyung Ilbu, and in the World Tang Soo Do Association, this is a block that you're blocking this type of a technique, this is the punch, or this is the grab, and go through all of them. Because I see like Ian Abernathy take apart Hyungs, and he kind of has a curriculum on what the Hyungs and his interpretation of them are. And we have some amazing people in the World Tang Soo Do Association that probably have, if not all of this already put together, at least parts of it, or have taken apart a Hyung. And I would like to see all of us bring that together and as an association have a curriculum. Again, big thoughts. I don't have any answers though.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I've talked to others about it, and I don't know if you know Master Khan, that he's dedicated a lot of time to that.
Yes.
Master Godwin as well.
Yes.
I have my friends Master Black and Master Falschnot from Midas Karate. They both have done a lot of training on that. But at the same time, I've talked to people where they ask Grandmaster Shin, it's like, oh, what's this move? Like, we do a low block in Seikyung Ilbo. What is it? Well, it's a block, right? And he would say, like, don't overthink it. So it's interesting. There's two sides, because I'm very much of the same mind of yeah, we do it, but okay, what is it?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here? And you mentioned Ian Abernathy, and I enjoy his stuff. I've had the opportunity to train with him, and I like going down that rabbit hole, and I like giving little, bits and pieces here and there. It's tough to do. It was like, all right, we're going to do Pyeongnidan, and then we're going to do an application for each move. That's a lot to digest, but one or two moves in each one is definitely something that I try to do. And I encourage my students to look at it as well, which is hard. It's hard to do on your own, but no, I definitely like that mindset, and I like the way you think about it.
I would also like to, and I've played with this a little bit within our region, is if all this is supposed to kind of blend together, our one steps should be found in our hyungs, and hyungs should be self-defense moves and wholesome soul. So how do those all blend together, and trying to find like Ilsu Siksuki number one, where in a form can I find that? And if so, can we integrate those so that we're all training towards the same purpose, so it all works together? That's been an interesting work through the one step. Some of them I really struggle with, some of them are pretty obvious, but I guess it goes back to the teacher side of me again, that I don't want to do anything that is not evidence scientific based as far as what we're teaching in the classroom and teaching methodology, pedagogy, and all that. And then trying to work it all towards one of those three objectives of better person or better health or self-defense. And so,
well, it's that's why you teach. And like I try to, it's a constant evolution. Like I think of myself as an instructor. I mean, even 5 years ago, I feel like I'm a much better instructor now than I was then. And some of the main things, it's the little details, right? For me, it's the little details I've improved on. Would you agree?
I think back to some of my first EMT and paramedic classes, and I need to go back and apologize to those students. I was doing my best at the time, but I didn't know what I was doing. And even when I first started teaching in Taekwondo, and then when I started teaching Tang Soo Do, I don't think I fully understood what I needed to be doing. And I still don't. I'm still evolving and changing. But I think I do a better job now than I used to. But there are some nights I come out and say, that was a good lesson. And I try to take some notes on that. That was something Grandmaster Strong really hit or really pushed for us, is to every time we taught a class is to make notes, or even take the class, take notes afterwards about what worked, what didn't work, what you did, so you wouldn't forget these things. So I try to do that. And I think I'm getting more classes that feel like that went well versus that did not go well at all. My kids' classes are the ones that are the most obvious, though, because if you don't do well in that class, they will usually let you know.
Yes.
Men are running around all over the place.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, I think we're going to wrap up it there, sir. I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to get a chance to chat. I thoroughly enjoyed the time, and I'm looking forward. Hopefully everything goes well and we'll get a chance to see each other at Masters Clinic next year.
I'm excited about that. We're already making plans. We're getting things set up. We're looking forward to everybody coming down. Going to the U.S. Nationals made me realize just how much I miss seeing everybody.
Absolutely.
Which may sound funny from somebody that's so shy and quiet that I don't really do well in groups, but being there was good. It was so good. So I'm looking forward to Masters Clinic where we can get together again.
All right, sir. Well, thanks again. Thank you everyone for watching along.
Thank you. Thank you. Tang Soo.
Tang Soo.